Dear CBS, Doomcock here. I have decided the time has come to address you directly because it occurs to me that you are at a crossroads in regard to Star Trek, and I'm hoping to communicate with you before you irrevocably choose the path that leads to darkness, failure, and oblivion. Though you may not believe it, and as hard as it is for me to believe, I'm posting this to you today from a place of honesty and caring. It is truly an effort to help you while you still have a chance to help yourselves. Why a crossroads, you ask? It's time to speak frankly, you and I. Most of you listening to this message know that Les Moonves hated Star Trek, and worse, hated Star Trek fans. You know this is true. In this open letter, I'm not going to play games with you. You can deny and obfuscate as much as you'd like in your press releases, but here you need say nothing, need not deny, need not deflect. You know this is true. So be it. And now you're at a crossroads because you finally got rid of Les Moonves, and that means you can either continue to walk Moonves' path, a path that surely leads to the destruction of Star Trek, or you can choose a different path, a path of sanity that returns you to a place of healing, a place of profit, and a place of prosperity where fans are actually pulling for you to succeed again. Remember when you had Star Trek fans? I'm serious. Think about the golden days. Golden in terms not only of regard but of profit. When fans were pulling for Star Trek to succeed? When fans eagerly awaited new seasons, spent all sorts of money on merchandise and costumes? When you actually got good reviews, fan letters, and support in the form of goodwill? In those days, regardless of whether you were succeeding or failing in terms of quality season to season, fans had at least the reasonable expectation that the people in charge of Star Trek were trying to make it good, that they were trying to respect the franchise, and succeed or fail, the makers of Star Trek were coming from a place of love. Well, I hate to tell you this, CBS, but this is not true anymore. I think you guys live in a bubble a lot of the time. You're not fans of Star Trek, I get that. It's beneath you as executives to drink the Kool-Aid you're selling, that's fine. But as a fan, as someone who has loved Star Trek his whole life, I'm trying to tell you something true and fundamental. Fans no longer believe you're on their side. Indeed, we fans feel that CBS hates us, hates Star Trek, and is trying to ram substandard garbage down our throats out of arrogance and contempt. This has been true. It's no secret that Moonves hated Star Trek and its fans, and when you place a franchise in the hands of those who hate it, how can you be surprised when the franchise dies? No kidding, CBS. Star Trek Discovery is an abomination. It is a hideous and stupid parody of Star Trek. Star Trek, real Star Trek, was about optimism, heroism, sacrifice, and the ultimate nobility of the human spirit. STD is a grotesque attempt to make Game of Thrones in space, with Trumpian Klingorks, violence that's meant to be shocking but just comes off as lame, moronic writing, cardboard characters no one gives a damn about, and darkness. Not just tonally, but actual darkness. I mean, I know you're trying to save money on this thing, but how much would it cost you to buy a few more lights and actually illuminate the sets? It's just silly to think that on a starship you'd keep things so dark that people could make critical mistakes just by bumping into the wrong panel? Even the alerts are black. All kidding aside, I'm here to tell you, this thing you're making is not Star Trek. It is a parody of Star Trek created by people who hate Star Trek and or know almost nothing about it. You guys on the board are puzzled and panicked by this because you don't know Star Trek and you're not fans. That's fine. Mostly the executives at Paramount in the old days weren't Star Trek fans either. But those guys, back in the day, when Star Trek was a thriving success, knew enough to hire people who either did know and love Star Trek or people who were capable, competent, and so full of goodwill that they would educate themselves about Star Trek. People like the great Harve Bennett, who, when entrusted with the second Star Trek movie, actually watched all 79 episodes for the first time because he had never seen anything about Star Trek before, and he came up with the idea of using Khan in the sequel. Harve Bennett was a consummate professional who cared enough to do a good job because he was coming from that old-fashioned point of view that has served businessmen well since the first funds were exchanged in the marketplaces of old. The customer is always right. Harve Bennett, surprise, surprise, wonder of wonders, wanted to please the customer. Which brings us now to Alex Kurtzman. Whereas Harve Bennett learned everything he could about Star Trek in order to do a good job, Kurtzman and Moonves approached this new series with an arrogance and contempt that has brought Star Trek to the brink of absolute ruin. Their attitude was, we don't need to learn about Star Trek. Star Trek is whatever we damn well say it is. And all the little Trekkies will fall in line and choke down whatever swill we throw in their troughs. Apparently, Moonves and Kurtzman were stupid enough to think that we are hogs lined up for slaughter on your farm just because Trekkie rhymes with piggy. Big mistake, CBS, because Doomcock is nobody's swine, and this little Trekkie bites. And so we come to the crossroads. Here you are, at this point where you know Star Trek Discovery is a loser. Make what nonsense accusations and blame deflections you will in the press. The Star Trek Discovery DVDs and Blu-rays aren't selling because Star Trek fans hate the show. It's apparently been on sale in the UK for quite some time, and those discs are sitting on shelves gathering dust and scorn. And rest assured, their American counterparts have a hot date with the discount bin, if not an ET Atari cartridge grave in some landfill of the future. Why? Because it's not Star Trek. Because it's vile swill. Not only is it terrible Star Trek, it's terrible entertainment by any definition. The writing is atrocious. Have any of you people actually tried to watch this trash? I challenge you board members this weekend to take the DVDs home and try to watch them. Ask yourselves, why is the only remotely likable character a bit player with a cute smile and big boobs? Why is the lead a sanctimonious traitor with the charisma of a cinder block and one expression carved of wood? Why is there not a decent laugh in the whole show? Why the absurd gaps of logic and abundance of stupidity? I mean, try to understand this. I know you're not Star Trek fans, but hear me out just for a moment. At one point, Michael Burnham tells us that she was her adopted Vulcan father's experiment to see if Vulcans could coexist with humans. What you may not realize, not being Star Trek fans, is that Sarek, her Vulcan stepfather, is married to a human woman and has been at least for 20 years. They gave birth to Spock, who is half human, half Vulcan. So the idea that Michael Burnham is Sarek's experiment to see if humans and Vulcans can coexist is insultingly laughable. It is terrible writing, and worse, it's terrible thinking. It's a huge gob of spit in the eyes of not only fans, but any human viewer capable of cognition. This is why we hate Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery is a loser not because of critics like me, but because your horrible show created critics like me. Look at the numbers for CBS All Access. Look at the sales of the DVDs. Look at the reviews of this show. Why are you sacrificing your franchise and your careers to fall on Les Moonves' sword? Now, from what I hear, you're actually taking the tack of attacking reviewers, false flagging negative Star Trek reviews, trying to silence critics rather than fix your show. Do you honestly think that's going to fix anything? And do you honestly think that that strategy will silence dissent? Is this a long-term strategy? Or is this futile madness, like Mickey Mouse trying to chop up marching broomsticks, each splinter rising up to resume carrying water to drown your franchise? So long as you believe that fans are the problem, you're doomed. You've forgotten that fans are your customers. And you can't bully customers into liking garbage. The problem lies in our Star Trek, not in ourselves, CBS. And thus, the crossroads. How long are you going to kill yourselves defending the indefensible? Look at the paroxysms of twisted spasms you're contorting yourselves into, trying to defend the indefensible. You're attacking fans, your company is sundered in twain, you're bleeding yourselves dry, throwing money at reshoot after reshoot, trying desperately to fix Alex Kurtzman's narrative incompetence. What kind of contemptible hack can't even get a script right? How much money, prestige, and goodwill are you going to burn through trying to fix something that cannot be fixed? Your strategy now is what? To keep making this obscene parody of Star Trek, putting all the corporate might of CBS behind a plan to what? Convince us that we actually like this garbage? This hideous affront to fans? You can't still that many voices, CBS. Every time you try, you only make the problem worse. You really are Mickey Mouse now, who used the awesome power at his disposal to create a destructive situation that spiraled out of control and threatened to drown him in his own ambition and hubris. And make no mistake, CBS, you are drowning. You have forgotten the one simple rule of business: the customer is always right. And regarding Star Trek Discovery, the customer has spoken. It's worthless garbage that no one likes, no one wants, and no one will buy. So are you going to keep defending that? Or are you going to save yourselves? Stop making Star Trek Discovery. Stop throwing good money after bad. Stop alienating fans. Confused and unsure of what to do, here's what you do. Cancel Star Trek Discovery. Disavow it. Declare it a parallel universe constructed by Q as a bad joke. Get all bad robot elements out of developing the new shows. Bring in fans who love Star Trek and know Star Trek and listen to them. Hell, shoot me the goddamn scripts ahead of time and I'll do some script doctoring on them for you. How about that? How about you send me the scripts ahead of time and I do these scathing reviews of them privately for you so you can fix them? Do things for the fans instead of accusing and alienating fans. Your fans are your customers. And although I don't have a degree in business administration, I do know you never succeed by driving your customers away. And that's what you're doing, CBS. For some insane reason, even absent Moonves, you're still dancing like puppets to his tune, still following him down the disastrous path he laid out, the stubborn path to ruin. Turn back, O CBS, forswear thy foolish ways. Old now is Star Trek and none may count her days. And as far as silencing critics, forget it. You ban videos, there's always podcasts, and Twitter, and direct downloads for fans, and Vimeo, and Patreon, and word of mouth, and God knows what. The only way to stop us from complaining about how horrible Star Trek Discovery is to stop making Star Trek Discovery. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock begging you now to stop this madness and save yourselves.